Here I'm going to discuss a few famous philosophical thought experiments and maybe see if I can add a couple unique insights. Number 1, the Sword of Damocles. The Sword of Damocles comes from an ancient story recorded by Cicero about a courtier named Damocles who envied the power and luxury of the ruler Dionysius II of Syracuse. To teach him a lesson, the ruler allowed Damocles to sit on the throne and enjoy the privileges of kingship, but with a sword suspended above his head by a single horsehair. The image symbolized the constant danger and anxiety that accompany great power. In modern political language, the phrase "sword of Damocles" often refers to the ever-present risks and responsibilities that hang over leaders, especially those who wield immense authority. In a modern context, this brings to mind a question I think many have asked themselves. Why do our elected leaders, particularly the executives, seem to be getting worse? Despite the internet putting all the knowledge gathered throughout human history at our fingertips, and despite AI transforming exhaustive logical calculations into something that can be done at a moment's notice, any given speech from any of our last couple presidents would be an embarrassment next to nearly any historical one. I realize you can't draw a straight line from someone's speeches to their effectiveness as an executive, but that's the part the public gets to see, the part that gets them elected. Sure, one could claim that the sort of intellectual winnowing made famous in films like Idiocracy is coming true, but I really don't think that's it. I think it has to do with the Sword of Damocles concept. I think it has to do with the fact that only an absolute madman would desire the powers of a king so unswervingly that they would be willing to sit beneath a sword held up by only a horsehair. If you know the way the story ends, Damocles himself was not quite that mad. He tried, he couldn't do it. I think that in this modern age of 24-hour news and social media partitioning average people into radicals, there is a logically indefensible sacrifice that goes into running for an office like that. In a lot of ways, the moment you declare your intention to run for one party or the other, the two-party system being equally complicit in this, half the country immediately hates you and will slander you and everyone in your whole family. I've seen it on both sides all my life. Couple that with the legitimate physical danger posed from deranged radicals and would-be assassins, and I don't believe a rational person would ever choose to put themselves in that kind of situation. No, I think we're in the boat we're in because we have a system in which only a medically diagnosable narcissist would put themselves and those around them in that line of harm. Narcissists, whose primary motivation, mind you, is always personal acclaim and the power to control and punish their enemies. National unity, bettering of the citizenry, and peaceful objectives, the types of things we would want leaders to pursue, are only pursued if they can be used as a means for personal glory. Number 2, the trolley problem. The trolley problem is a famous thought experiment in ethics, originally formulated by Philippa Foot and later expanded by Judith Jarvis Thomson. In this scenario, a runaway trolley is heading toward 5 people who are tied to a track. You can pull a lever to divert the trolley onto another track, and there it will only kill 1 person instead of the 5. The dilemma asks whether it is morally permissible, or even morally obligatory, to take an action that saves more lives but directly causes another person's death. Classically, the problem explores the tension between utilitarian ethics, which is maximizing the total good entirely weighted by the outcome, and deontological ethics, which is following moral rules that forbid harming others without consideration for the outcome. These are philosophical binaries that have been championed by some of the greatest minds of Western philosophy, such as John Stuart Mill and Immanuel Kant. However, both systems, when followed to their extremes, have inherent complications. The thought experiment that is sometimes used to show the average moral agent's instinctive distaste for extreme utilitarian calculations goes like this. There is a surgeon with 5 patients, who each need a different organ to live, and one healthy man with all 5 healthy organs sitting out in the waiting room. Isn't it justifiable then, given utilitarian calculus, for the surgeon to take that one man's life to save the other 5? Another that was posed to dispute deontological extremes goes like this. An innocent Jewish person is hidden in your house, and a Nazi soldier comes to the door asking about them. According to strict deontology, because dishonesty is a moral harm, lying to the Nazi soldier is morally impermissible, even though the consequences of not doing so are horrendous. Given that the average modern individual rarely considers themselves a strict utilitarian or deontologist, the enduring fascination of the trolley problem lies instead in how it exposes the uneasy gap between moral reasoning and moral intuition. Many people seem to be comfortable pulling the lever, but feel far less comfortable with variations where the harm is caused more directly, like knocking a large man onto the track to stop the train before it hits those 5 people. This suggests that people may form moral judgments not by rules or by outcomes, but sometimes by perceived psychological distance from the causation of harm. In an age of automated systems, military drones, and artificial intelligence, the trolley problem has become less hypothetical. Society increasingly delegates life and death trade-offs to systems that must encode ethical decisions. Does this instinct to be okay with harm if one perceives themselves as psychologically distant from it portend an unsettling callousness with those decisions being potentially programmed into automated systems going forward? Number 3, the Ring of Gyges. The Ring of Gyges appears in the Republic of Plato. In this story, the shepherd named Gyges discovers a magical ring that grants him invisibility. Using this power, he's able to murder the king, seduce the queen, and seize the throne. The story is introduced during a philosophical debate about justice, with the suggestion that if people could act without being seen or punished, they would abandon morality and pursue self-interest. The thought experiment raises a profound question about human nature. Are people moral because they value justice, or simply because they fear the consequences? In a modern world, the ring can be interpreted metaphorically as anonymity, especially online anonymity. The behavior of people on anonymous platforms sometimes seems to confirm Plato's concern. When accountability disappears, civility often follows. Yet the persistence of altruistic behavior, even in anonymous settings, often suggests that moral conscience may run deeper than a mere fear of punishment. Another thought experiment which appears in the Republic of Plato is the allegory of the cave. In the allegory, prisoners are chained inside a cave and can only see shadows projected onto the wall by objects passing in front of a fire behind them. Having never seen the outside world, they start to believe that the shadows are reality. There are even statues of horses and trees, which the prisoners conflate with the real things, knowing no other experiences. When one prisoner finally is able to escape, he sees the real world. He sees the sun. He realizes that what others perceive as truth is only a distorted reflection. He tries to return and explain the illusion to everyone else, but they just trust him and even mock him because his eyes are no longer adjusted to the dark. Viewed through the lens of the modern internet, the cave resembles the fragmented information environments that people inhabit online. Algorithms, social networks, and ideological communities can create partitioned realities where individuals see only curated shadows of the broader world. Like the prisoner returning to the cave, those who encounter different perspectives often struggle to convince others that their informational environment is incomplete. The allegory thus remains strikingly relevant. The challenge of modern society may not be ignorance itself, but the difficulty of recognizing when we are only looking at the shadows. Number 5, the ship of Theseus. The Ship of Theseus is a classical paradox about identity over time. It was discussed by ancient writers, including Plutarch. The puzzle asks, if a ship has all its wooden parts gradually replaced over time, is it still the same ship? A further complication arises if the discarded original parts are reassembled into another vessel. Then which one is the true Ship of Theseus? The problem explores how objects, and even people, maintain identity despite continual change. The paradox resonates strongly in discussions of personal identity, organizations, and even nations. Humans physically replace most of the cells in their bodies over time, yet we still consider ourselves to be the same person. The puzzle suggests that identity may depend less on physical continuity and more on patterns, structure, and narrative continuity. In modern debates about digital identity, artificial intelligence, or mind uploading, the Ship of Theseus becomes surprisingly relevant. If the components change but the pattern remains, what truly defines the self? Number 6, the prisoner's dilemma. The prisoner's dilemma is the foundational concept in game theory, originally developed by Merrill Flood and Melvin Drescher, and later popularized by Albert W. Tucker. In this scenario, two prisoners are interrogated separately. Each can either cooperate with each other by remaining silent, or they can betray the other one for a lighter sentence. Rational self-interest pushes both prisoners toward betrayal. Yet, if both betray, then both of them end up with a longer sentence than if they had cooperated. The dilemma illustrates a feature in many social systems. Otherwise rational individual choices can produce collectively worse outcomes. In a tournament with multiple players, those individuals who betray early and often will likely have higher scores at first. The problem for those players is that with enough rounds, eventually the rest of the players will stop trusting them, and they will be punished for it. In the long run, individuals who cooperate more often tend to do much better. This may give us some insight about the evolutionary development of society and ethics. Well, that's all of them for now. I hope you enjoyed that. I'll probably do another one where I talk about some of the psychological experiments that we learned about in college. Those seem fun.